I was so excited to finally be able to go inside this creepy old abandoned house that was rumored to be haunted. And then once we were inside, we realized there was so much more going on here than we originally thought. This is the story of the creepiest house I've ever explored. This is an old abandoned house that's been left to rot in the woods of Indiana. It has been here for over 100 years, and it was until recently that they finally cut down all of these trees around the house, revealing it to the entire internet. The house is located deep within a private community where trespassing is prohibited. But after seeing the house, I can completely understand why people have been sneaking in here to explore. After driving around in circles looking for a way in, we found what would be the easiest way to get into the backyard, which was to just walk through someone's backyard next door. We did just that. And before we knew it, we were standing behind the house. And from here, we could see how big it really was. It almost didn't even look real. There were no lights on or around the house, and yet there was a light coming from one of the windows on the second floor. And that's when we heard the sound. You're probably wondering what that noise is, but I promise it gets worse. As we got closer to the back door, we noticed some strange symbols carved into the wood. I don't know if this was done intentionally or not, but it definitely added to the creepy factor. After taking a few pictures, we decided it was time to finally go inside. The front door was locked, but that was expected. However, what we didn't expect was to find the back door wide open with not a single lock on it. It almost looked like an invitation to come inside, so we did just that. And right away, the power of suggestion kicked in. The longer I stood there thinking about how haunted this place was, the more I started feeling uneasy. That's when we started hearing footsteps in the walls. At first, we thought it might be mice, or maybe even a family of raccoons. But the sounds were far too heavy to be anything small. You can hear it again right now if you listen closely. That noise has continued throughout our entire investigation. We also started hearing scratching noises coming from above us, as if something large were crawling around on the floor above. But when we went upstairs, we found nothing. This house is definitely hiding its face. And I can assure you, it's not because of any home renovation project. As we continued to make our way deeper inside, we found a pair of little girls' shoes sitting on the steps. Now, keep in mind, this is an abandoned house that has been empty for decades, so who knows how long these shoes have actually been here. But still, it was a weird thing to find. I kept waiting for the rest of the Ghostbusters to show up, but instead, I only found a pair of worn-out bunny slippers. Before we go much further, let me tell you about this room. The reason I remember it so vividly is because it was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. I'm not sure if this was some sort of medical room, or maybe even a jail cell, but it just gave off the worst vibes. All of the doors in this house were either boarded up or removed entirely, leaving gaping holes in their place. But this room still had its door, and I couldn't help but wonder what was behind it. Unfortunately, I couldn't open it. It was locked tight, and I don't want to know what was behind that door anyway. The further we walked, the more debris we found. And this rocking chair was just another example of how mysterious this place really is. Who came in here and left all of this trash? And why? Whoever they were, they really hated this house and wanted it all to themselves. They must have broken every window in the house just to make sure no one else could enjoy the view. And after seeing how bad some of these floors are, I can understand why they didn't want anyone else walking on them. But there was one room that was completely untouched, the dining room. Everything was still in place. There were plates on the table and silverware in the cupboards. It almost felt like the family just up and left one day and never came back. But we know that's not the case. The house had been empty for decades. The scratching sounds started again, and this time they were coming from inside the wall. I tried my best to take a peek inside, but there was no way I was getting in there. And that's when we heard it again. Footsteps. But it wasn't just footsteps. It sounded like someone or something was dragging something across the floor, and it was coming from directly below us. As we made our way to the attic, we couldn't help but notice all of the strange symbols carved into the walls. I don't know if this was done by the previous owners, or maybe the ghost that lives here, but it definitely made the place feel a lot creepier. Up here, we found the source of the footsteps, or at least we thought we did. There was no one up here. It was completely empty, except for all of the garbage, of course. But that's when we noticed something even stranger. There was a hole in the ceiling, and when we looked up, we saw a skylight on the roof. That meant there was a way to get out of this house without having to go down the way we came. And that was exactly what we did. It was a beautiful night, and I couldn't think of a better way to spend it than by exploring a haunted house with my friends. We made our way onto the roof and started looking for the skylight. It was surprisingly hard to find, but after a few minutes, we finally spotted it. Unfortunately, it was too small for any of us to fit through, but that didn't stop us from trying. And that's when I noticed something strange. One of the shingles was loose, and when I lifted it, I saw a dark opening behind it. I knew I shouldn't do it, but I couldn't help myself. I squeezed through the opening and found myself inside the attic. It was pitch black, so I turned on my flashlight and started looking around. That's when I saw it. A full-length mirror leaning against the wall. I don't know why it stood out to me so much, but it was the only thing in the attic that wasn't covered in trash. I slowly walked over to it and shined my light on it. It was an antique with an ornately carved wooden frame. And as I stared into its depths, I couldn't help but feel a sense of dread wash over me. And that's when I heard it. A voice, a woman's voice saying, "Get out." I froze and slowly turned around to look for the source of the voice, but there was nothing there. I looked back at the mirror and my heart skipped a beat. There was a woman standing behind me. She was tall and thin with long flowing hair. Her eyes were wide and she was staring directly at me. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. I was frozen in fear as she slowly approached me, and then suddenly she was gone. I quickly ran to the opening where I had come in and crawled out onto the roof. My friends were gone. I didn't know where they went, but I didn't care. All I knew was that I needed to get away from that house. As I stumbled through the woods, I could feel her presence following me. I could hear her footsteps behind me, hitting closer and closer. Then suddenly, she was right behind me. I turned around to face her, but she was gone. I looked back at the house and saw her standing on the roof, staring directly at me. And then she disappeared. When I finally got home, I checked my phone to see if my friends had left me a message, but they hadn't. They weren't answering their phones either. I tried to call them back, but it went straight to voicemail. I didn't know where they went, but I didn't care. All I knew was that I never wanted to see that house again. Now, years later, I still haven't seen my friends since that night, and I often wonder if they ever made it home.